Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk now. With Quant, could they be on the brink of mass adoption? And if anything, can it be done through tokenization? Well, without further ado, let's kick it into today's Quant coverage. So, there's a few key things that, of course, was mentioned about roughly 4 hours ago, straight from Quant. Particularly this, I'm glad that they addressed the whole issue, for instance, with FTX and so on. And by the way, Quant was not available on the FTX exchange, which, let's face it, good, right? So it mentions right here, with the issues besetting crypto exchanges like FTX, a more grown-up approach is needed. Yeah, and rightfully so, right? So look at this. It says, our capital markets have evolved over centuries to be highly regulated and secure investment environments. As such, they offer far better use cases for just that tokenization. Now, I just want to throw this out. There are so many different cryptos out there that represent tokenization. One that definitely stands out for me is, for instance, Audio, aka Audius. It's a tokenization platform basically for like independent artists. For instance, if you're a singer, you don't have to necessarily go through the middleman of, for instance, a record label, right? So they basically tokenize just that, independent artists, other content creators, etc., etc. It's a really, really cool thing. But what about Quant's perspective in regards to tokenization? Of course, we're going to get a little bit more into that. You're not going to want to miss that. I would highly suggest to watch to the end of the video. It goes on to mention this right here. Tokenization, of course, has many benefits. It provides new opportunities for firms to raise venture capital. Fund managers can diversify the products and gain new efficiencies from, for example, DLT. Investors will be able to access new, safer asset classes previously unavailable to them. And then last but not least, of course, like what it mentions right here, and it's already happening. Read the first in a series of use cases on how capital markets, market participants, I should say, are embracing just that, tokenization. And, for instance, there's a lot of this currently going on. If you've been following the likes of, for instance, what's going on with XRP, they just recently got into the whole thing with real estate, right? Tokenizing, physical real estate platform. I realize that there's virtual real estate nowadays with the metaverse and so on. But of course, we're going to take a moment to basically get more into this, which brings you, of course, to this particular page. This, again, of course, came out on November 7th. But again, it's part one of an ongoing series that they happen to have. I want to point out a few key things here because, if anything, it gives you an idea of how, for instance, Quant reaches just that, the mass adoption, right? We talk about that quite often here at CTN when it comes to the likes of Quant and whatnot. But I don't think a lot of people, who are new, obviously not the ones that have done a lot of research into this and so on, but they haven't grasped or fathomed the whole idea of how, we get those insane market caps or market cap predictions when it comes to the likes of Quant, right? So, for instance, it says, fund tokenization is now a prime position to bring blockchain technology to the asset management industry. If you think about this in itself, whether you're for BlackRock or not, right? They are the world's largest asset custodian. So if anything, you better believe the likes of a particular company like that is definitely recognizing the technology behind tokenization and so on. But a little bit more in regards to this particular piece, of course, from Quant. I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but a few key things I definitely want to point out is, like, for instance, where it says this, there's alternative assets where the minimum investment is prohibitively high, barring access to smaller investors. What they're basically referring to there is, like what it says right here, the fund tokenization within the global asset management industry continues to gather pace as underlying blockchain technology ushers in a new era of fund investing, I should say. This is especially true, like they mentioned, with alternative assets. And, when you think of alternative assets, it's not just the likes of, for instance, like we mentioned with real estate, with XR, with what XRP got into and so on, or like the example I gave you guys, for instance, with audio, aka Audius and so on, the tokenization of independent artists. It goes on and on and on, right? Going digital to improve efficiency and transparency. Listen to what it has to say right here. I know this is a lot of this is kind of verbatim, but nonetheless, like, look at this. Tokenization involves converting economic ownership rights to a digital format. In a fund context, shares are digitally represented and held on a blockchain, which provides the underlying distributed ledger technology to store, manage, and trade each digital share of unit. The blockchain uses code to mimic the functionality of a traditional fund, whereby each token provides fractional ownership of just what? The underlying assets, right? So, when I'm thinking more about this and so on, and somebody mentions, for instance, like what XRP happens to be into with the whole real estate type of thing. How about this? Titles, right? You're going to see a new age, for instance, where the titles basically are, on the blockchain instead of the traditional format, right? And if anything, it shows just that, like it mentions, each token, or in this case, maybe even like a title of ownership, but it's on the form of a blockchain. People don't realize it. I think they haven't quite fathomed how close we are to having just that, the mass adoption of these particular things. A little bit further down, I know it says about the last, about the 2.3 billion, but what I want to also point out is this right here, this particular statement. It states that the Investment Association laid out their first vision of Investment Fund 3.0, suggesting that increased adoption of tokenization will, quote, ultimately reduce costs for consumers and improve efficiency in the delivery of funds through quicker settlement and improved transparency of transaction. That in itself, if you really think about it, not even counting the likes of Quant, how everything is, trying to be interoperable and whatnot, but think of like all the other Quant partners, whether it is Ripple's XRP or, Stellar's XLM and so on. When I think of that, I literally am thinking of, those faster faster transactions, and if anything, having it be a lot more secured, right? I don't like the idea that, for instance, with the old model, like over an hour for some of these transactions to basically happen. And if anything, you have a hacker group from, I don't know, let's say, North Korea or something crazy like that, and they were able to hack a portion of a multi-trillion-dollar transfer. That's definitely an issue. I get the whole idea that, for instance, it's a lot more faster and efficient what we have, but the focus shouldn't just be on what's faster, what's also more secure. Hence, like a lot of things we're basically seeing right now with even FTX, right? With the recent hack. Everybody, of course, is talking about the whole thing of what happened on that particular exchange. It's horrible news, right? But of course, what you also saw with the announcement of what was it, 600 million hack? Crazy stuff. A little bit more in regards to this. It says a new market, $1 trillion opportunity. And I think, again, that's where some of these people are putting these crazy price predictions, for instance, with the likes of Quant. If you're new to Quant, you're literally thinking to yourself, man, I don't get this. Where is this coming from? I mean, this don't sound realistic. How can we get that? And they're focusing on what? The bear market that we're in. I think there's so much more to it than just what's on the surface, right? So, for instance, it says, quote, this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar market, no doubt about it. Comments from Kevin Unai, founder of Backed, quote, companies are realizing the benefits of easy settlement of securities. The blockchain is famous for making it easy to settle a transaction in a transparent way. It is the perfect technology to use in the asset management industry. And if anything, it's going to continue to trend in a positive way, because if you think about it, more and more asset management firms and so on are going to realize the benefits of having it be a lot more faster, more secure, and if anything, is saving them millions, if not billions of dollars in the long run, right? Or even on the short term for that matter, right? We gave you guys the example the other day where Gilbert Verdian basically mentioned the whole thing of, for instance, a particular blockchain project comes up to him and says, look, we need to work with Quant. We're paying out $10,000 a day in these fees. And Gilbert basically saying, all right, we can solve some of these problems and cut that in half to $5,000. You do the math on that, I think that's roughly about $1.8 million a year in savings. I mean, and that's, again, that, you know, is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more to it. Richard Johnson, the CEO of Texture Capital, a FINRA and SEC registered broker / dealer, notes that Apollo Global recently hired Christine Moy from JP Morgan's Onyx division to head up its digital asset strategy. In his view, quote, we will soon see these big blue chip names coming to market with tokenized funds. And my key takeaway is when that happens, again, like it mentions some of the big blue chip ones, we're talking about like big players, right? Not small time and so on. When they come in and realize these particular benefits, if anything, it's kind of like word of mouth, but with what? Some of the big blue chip ones out there. And again, that brings even that much more of the mass adoption. You tie that in with the likes of what Quant has got going on. I mean, it's just the scale is just incomprehensible, right? All right, a little bit more in regards to this. And of course, we'll do more coverage with the following parts. Like it mentions, it says, this is the first in a series of articles on fund tokenization. Parts 2, 3, and 4 will follow in the weeks ahead. And of course, here at CTM, we'll be more than glad to bring you that information. A little bit more in regards to today's Quant coverage. Shout out, of course, to Quant Papa, who's just always killing it with the info. This is about 1:04. I love how this is put together because here's the thing. You think about what's going on with the whole thing with FTX, for instance, and you think about, for instance, man, can you imagine if the likes of Gilbert Verdian ran FTX? I don't think we would be in this problem that is going on as we speak. So again, it's about a minute, and then we'll come back for some more commentary.
And I'm proud that the UK is playing its part.
I ran the UK's payment infrastructure for the Bank of England.
I ran the payment infrastructure as the Chief Security Officer for the Bank of England, so keeping all the money safe.
$130 trillion
across all the payment systems and the payment rails
is to rewire the entire global financial system.
And I've worked in cybersecurity for 20 years. I ran the UK's payment infrastructure for the Bank of England as the Chief Security Officer with a company called Vocalink. And I know how difficult it is to secure a very complex financial system.
$130 trillion.
Heavily regulated, heavily supervised, heavily audited. But using blockchain, it allows you to do that in a simpler way. And what we've done is, through interoperability, remove the barriers for adoption, allowed anyone to basically use any blockchain with 3 lines of code.
$130 trillion.
And that's so unique.
Of capital to be deployed.
We're shaping the system.
Historic wall of capital.
So if anything, you know, one of my key takeaways here is just that, you know, like, he basically mentions the whole concept of, like, you know, 20 plus years he's been doing this, for instance, securing things for the Bank of England and whatnot. If anything, it's instilling that confidence. And right now, especially with everything that's happened with FTX, you need to have somebody who has a lot of experience, you know, again, instilling that confidence. And when he also mentioned, like, for instance, getting to, you know, for instance, the mass adoption. Well, in this current time, a lot of people are kind of on the fence about, you know, well, how are we going to have a lot of mass adoption when, you know, there's like the likes of FTX, you know, going on. We don't want that to happen again. Again, take somebody that has a ton of experience, years and years of, literally over 2 decades, and then the partnerships that he has going on. You know, for instance, he used to have a background with, what was it, Visa, MasterCard, and so on. When you see some of the Zoom meetings, you're really seeing, you know, CEOs from those particular projects in those particular meetings, and then other, you know, big central banks in there as well. Again, it instills even that much more confidence. And then how about this? We covered this a few videos back. You know, for instance, in 2014, Gilbert Verdian himself created an ISO standard, right? That shows a lot of confidence as far as I'm concerned. If I was getting into the like of Quant, or not even just from a retail investor point of view, right? If I'm coming into, for instance, this particular blockchain type business and so on, I like the idea that the guy that's the head honcho, if you will, behind it all, has a ton of experience and already has done quite a bit for ISO in itself. So a little bit more in regards to our quant coverage. I want to show you guys this as well. This is, of course, from this particular gentleman at Quant_investor, QNT_investor. States, fundamentals haven't changed. Well, basically they did. The fact that Nexi Group is now officially working with the European Central Bank to create the digital, listen to this, euro, is the most bullish thing I've heard in a while, because they'll use Quant's over ledger for that. It's massive, because if anything, for one, you're seeing how everything is being literally lined up. Call it what you will, like, getting your all, Gilbert Verdian and Quant are literally getting all their ducks in a row. When you see that he has already quite a bit of experience with the likes of, the recent elected Prime Minister of the UK, and then the background that they've had together and what they've worked on. Again, like what he mentioned with, when it comes to, for instance, ISOs all the way back to 2014 and whatnot. And then, for instance, having the Bank of England recognizing what Quant can bring. Or how about this? Again, I think it was like 3 or 4 videos back, we covered here at CTN the idea that a top official from the Bank of France reached out to Gilbert and basically said, we really realize what you guys bring to the table. And then Gilbert coming back said, yeah, and how about this? We're not going to have your developers basically jump through a bunch of red tape, if you will, to make it interoperable. We'll make things interoperable for you, so you don't even have to do any of that heavy lifting, if you will. I think it's tremendous. So, I mean, those particular examples, and then to have this with the digital euro, when they already have all this going on with the ISO 222, compliancy coming up, especially with March on the way. Combine that, the ISOs, the everything, for instance, trying to secure everything for the Bank of England. It's just, and it doesn't end there, right? It doesn't end there at all. So here's a little bit more in regards to this. So it shows 39.7 billion DLT market value forecast for 2025. Of course, we already know about some of these partnerships and so on. Oracle, LAC chain, basically for Latin America and whatnot. But Nexi, right? I mean, it's just massive. So it says, build over ledger, the world's first blockchain agnostic API gateway into your own DLT solutions, and use our products to add value to your existing project, blockchain, you name it, right? So I just, again, it's really, really neat to see what's going on Quant, especially daily, right? A lot of times you don't necessarily see like a bunch of coverage on some of these, top 50 cryptos necessarily like every other day. Sometimes you see some tweets and so on, but man, Quant has been killing it with it. All right, as far as price, Quant currently at the time of making this video is down to 107.52. I'm even tempted to get another Quant. I know the holidays are coming up and so on. We all have budgets and whatnot, but looking pretty good. All those people are rooting for this to go down to 100. I mean, it could, and if it did, my attitude is more buying opportunities, not financial advice, but that is the way I personally look at it. A little bit more in regards to this, again, like I mentioned before, the markets, Quant was not on FTX at all. I double checked this and I didn't see it listed anywhere. So that's really, really good. And I really am glad that they them at Quant basically addressed the whole, FTX issue to a sense. All right, they didn't really like overly go into full detail and so on, but you kind of have a gist of their stance in regards to that particular issue. So guys, that is it for today's Quant coverage. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit that bell notification. And by all means, if you love a live show, check us out literally every day of the week, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And if anything, check out our website. We're trying to make it basically be your one-stop shop for crypto. I know it sounds nuts, but literally it's just that. We have live charts. We have, for instance, tickers, the whole 9 yards, social media, everything on it. CryptoTalkNow.net. You can even get the apps either on Google Play Store or Apple iStore and so on. Again, guys, thanks again for watching. May you all have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next one.